call the meeting to order. Peggy has taken roll call.
Yes.
Approval of the minutes of our 06/06/19 meeting. Motion to approve, please. Thank you, Gordy. A second to that motion. Thank you. Are there any corrections or changes to the minutes? Hearing no changes, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. The minutes are approved as presented. Next is the approval of the police department bills. Chief, would you care to?
I would care to. Good morning. 3 sets of bills in
Do
front
it
of you.
anyway.
3 sets of bills in front of you. One signed by Commissioner Myers on June 5th, one by Commissioner Gershman on June 17th, and Commissioner Meese on July 1st. The only outstanding item to bring to your attention is on 4P, in Paul. We had removed the police department sign that was outside of the building. It was very unstable and unsteady, and rather than pouring a new concrete foundation or slab for it, we also had noticed that it created a view obstruction from some of our exterior cameras. So we had Macmillan Electric come in, remove that sign, and just put in some ground lighting that shined up on the Marshfield Police Department lettering that's on the side of the building. Looks a little cleaner, nicer, and it's more safe with having that unstable sign removed. That was just shy of $3,000 for all of that work. Be happy to answer any questions in those bills, but otherwise ask for your approval.
I have a question. Are you going to save that old sign for your new building?
We did put out the sign to see if anybody was interested in it. Nobody was. So I believe it's since been scrapped.
Oh, all right.
Oh.
Yes.
Any other questions for the chief about the bills that are? We need a roll call vote on the approval of the bills following President Myers' lead. I'll ask Peggy if she would do the roll call. Why do we need a motion? All right, we'll have a motion. Does anyone, you move, anyone second? That's taken care of. Go ahead.
Myers?
Yes.
Meese? Yes. Earl?
Yes.
Gershman?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Approval of the fire department bills.
Good morning. 3 sets of bills signed in front of you there. Commissioner Myers signed bills on June 5th and June 17th, and Commissioner Earl on July 1st. Just a few things, bigger ticket items that we're all budgeted for. On 5E, you'll notice that there's a charge to Physio Control, and that's for a new Life Pack, which is our cardiac defibrillator and modems, so we can transmit telemetry up to hospital. Also on 5E, there's 2 GPS Opticom devices. Those are for new ambulance and new engine that are scheduled to arrive here August and October-ish. And then on 5J, Knox Company, 2 med vaults. The med vaults are what we use to lock up our narcotics. One is for the new ambulance, and we're putting one in the station so that if an ambulance goes out of service, instead of transferring the narcotics to another ambulance for security, they'll be locked in the station med vault. Other than that, I didn't see anything that was odd or unusual. I'd be happy to answer any questions and ask for your approval.
Any questions for the chief? No questions? Well, I have one. Why did Blue Shift get no fruit?
Why did Blue Shift get noticed? Is this a joke? I don't know.
It's not a joke.
I don't know.
Red Shift got melons, Green Shift got bananas, and Blue Shift got no fruit.
Don't know.
That's a demoralizing thing.
Feel free to run and get some, I guess. I don't know. I didn't know that the other shifts got fruits. I didn't get any.
Maybe they like beef.
Of course, blue shift is not always the healthiest shift, so maybe they got donuts or something.
Well, now look. Red shift got muffins and melons. Green shift got donuts and bananas.
Did you do this?
No.
And for appreciation, their appreciation thing, it's in the budget, it's in the bills.
Oh, for that.
And-
No, they did get something.
It's not in the bill,
That was for EMS appreciation.
whatever.
Yeah, that they did get something. I forget what Steven bought. But
Well, it should have been in there.
what?
I felt bad for blue shift.
Really don't feel bad for blue shifts.
They got no fruit.
They really don't eat fruit. They prefer meat.
I see. You guys didn't read the bills very well, did you?
No. Kind of glossed over that.
That one slipped by.
Kind of confused me. I was like, what?
Does someone want to make a motion to approve?
I will.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Myers,
Yes.
Neese. Yes. Earl,
Yes.
Gershman,
Yes.
Keel.
Yeah.
I didn't know you. That was lost.
I thought it was kind of an important thing. Police Department activities, training reports and correspondence packet.
That makes you afraid to talk after that.
To your bed.
I will. A couple things to bring to your attention. June 5th and June 27th, some of our officers took part in the critical incident stress management meeting. This was in follow-up from the Wood County shooting out in Arpin. What the county does as a whole is for the officers, paramedics, hospital staff, social workers, I guess, whoever are involved in a critical incident such as this, they began a stress management team so that they would meet and debrief the situation. Only those who were direct participants are invited, but it's a way to just check in with them emotionally, see how they're doing. We have 3 officers who take part in this debrief normally because they were trained in the critical incident stress management model, and they were able to help out with the Wood County incident. So those debriefs took place on June 5th and June 27th. June 6th, we had our Special Olympics torch run, which we have individuals leave Marshfield and run for a part of it, but usually ride their bike from Marshfield to Stevens Point, where the Special Olympics are held. Jamie Kaiser, one of our officers, has been orchestrating that for a number of years now and has done a great job. June 7th, Taylor Cooper began her internship with us. She's from Winona. Well, she had school in Winona. She's originally from Marshfield. She'll be with us most of the summer. June 10th, I participated in police chief interviews at Port Edwards Police Department. We were able to narrow it down to a finalist, and from my understanding, he has been offered the position and has accepted. Then June 18th, we had a parking software demo, a way to automate our parking tickets and our parking permits for the city. Looks like it's a software program that we're going to move forward with. There's going to be, aside from having to buy some special handheld printers, there's really no cost to the city. Any cost for the software will fall onto the individual who is receiving the ticket. I think there's like a $3 surcharge per ticket that the company places on the individual. So we're in the process with, we just had a meeting with Board of Public Works, and it'll be coming through the City Council on increasing the charge or the fine amount for parking tickets within the city to help recoup some of that, and also to become more in line with what state statute tells us we should be for parking enforcement. It's really all the activity updates we have for you. Not much in the correspondence section of it, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners? Mike?
I'm always encouraged by the amount of training and stuff that's offered to all the officers. It's a variety of things. It rounds them out as far as an experience that they've that they're able to take advantage of. And I think your department's always been very strong in that respect, and
Thank you.
hope you continue.
Appreciate that.
Any additional comments? Thank you.
Thanks.
Chief, would you want to talk us through item 7, the resignation?
Yeah. One of our officers, Michael Topness, he's been with us 13 years. He's one of our department trainers. He was a firearms instructor. He was a field training officer for a number of years, which trains our newest hires. He was probably about 2 years ago appointed to be a lead officer, which is second in command of his shift. He's also been on our SWAT team for, I would say, about 6 years or 7 years, and he was actually the assistant team leader for that. He decided to take a full-time instructing position down at Mid-State Technical College. I do recall I was part of his interview back in 2012, 2013, and actually later, longer than that. But I remember him saying that he had aspirations of being an instructor at some point in his career. He wasn't sure where it would fall into play. His wife is an educator in the community, and I think he just has a natural draw to preparing those for the profession. So it's sad to see him go, but I would ask for you to accept his resignation. The date of he hasn't worked in probably about 2 weeks. He's using up some of his accrued time, but his last day of his work on the schedule, or his last scheduled work day, would be August 15th, if approved.
We need a motion to accept his.
Motion with regrets.
Well, Mike, would you mind if I change that to appreciation and regret?
Yes. Oh, you were right ahead. Thank you.
Second to Mike's motion. Thank you. We need a roll call on the vote for that.
Myers?
Yes.
Meese? Yes. Earl?
Yes.
Gershman?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes. I'm glad that he's found something that he's intended for a long time. But I'm sorry to see him leave. We need to give the chief permission to hire a replacement patrol officer. Do you want to comment on that, or is it just too straightforward?
Yeah, pretty straightforward, just a replacement for Mike's position, or his employment position. We would look, I know we have a number of applications currently. We'd be looking through those and would begin a process of some sort to fill that position. So we'll look to for permission to hire a replacement.
We need a motion for that.
So moved.
Second, Gordon, thank you. Is there any discussion?
Do you hire you won't hire at that same level, you typically hire at entry level then, and then you'll just
Yeah, it
promote
kind of
within?
depends. Yeah, it kind of depends on who they are and their what they have to offer. Probably about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, we put in place the opportunity for somebody to have laterally transfer any full-time experience they have. So we look at that subjectively and see where they're coming from, if it's somebody that has prior experience and what they have to offer. We could possibly, after they're done training, start them out at a higher rate of pay, maybe at a second or third year patrol officer rate of pay. We've done that a number of times with officers that we've hired. Hired one from Tomahawk, some from Wood County, one from Oshkosh, and we're able to start them at a higher rate of pay than just at entry level. But if it is an individual who has no full-time experience, just getting into the profession or fresh out of school or maybe just some part-time experience, we would definitely start them at the entry-level position.
So when you post a position, you don't post a, there's different levels. Obviously, he's more senior. It'll be a patrol officer. It won't be.
Yeah, we'll go through a process. Right. We'll go through a process internally to fill that lead officer position. Because there's certain, I guess, necessary years on and certain trainings that individual would need to have experienced or I guess in their application for that lead officer position. So no, we would be looking to fill an entry level position.
If there's nothing more, we need a vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion to permit a hiring or replacement for Michael Topmas, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you. And Chief, you might want to talk through the patrol uniform change proposal.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea for them to change now and again.
So the years are starting to blend in, so it's hard for me to say 3 years ago or 4 years ago, but a while ago, since I've been chief, I had brought forth to this body the request made by staff that on hot summer days they be afforded the opportunity to possibly wear shorts as opposed to their polyester or cotton pants that they wear on a daily basis as part of their uniform. At that time, this body, who had different members in it, voted that down, I believe saying that it maybe lacked some professionalism in its appearance is what the perception was. I was asked again by staff to bring that forward. I don't know if it was the last week or two of the hot weather, but more for comfort of the officers. The uniform has adapted and changed over the years. Some of the shirts have become lighter. They'll often wear like a polo type of shirt, and all of the ballistic vests that they wear are now external, and they're not wearing them underneath their clothes, so it makes it easier for them to take it off and cool off while they're in the station or things like that. So there is things that the profession has done to adapt and accommodate individuals, but I was asked to bring this forth as far as a recommendation or a request to have the option to wear shorts during warm summer days. I've done some research on this. There's not a lot of agencies that allow for this, but there are some. Some articles I've read talk about, the potential of it being a safety concern. If somebody were to have to wrestle with somebody, you'd have more protection. Or if you had to, if you fell, you'd have more protection with pants on maybe than with shorts. And the professionalism comment comes up on occasion in some articles I've read as well. But there are still organizations that allow for shorts. We allow officers to wear patrol shorts if they're on bicycle patrol, just to give them some more freedom of movement and the ability to maybe stay cooler if they're on bike patrol. But historically, that's the only time they've been allowed to wear shorts while on active patrol. I guess based on their assignment.
Well, if there are none in Wisconsin, I think we ought to be the first, at least to try it.
Sure.
Other comments or questions from the commission?
So, is there like a slippery slope of when you can and not can? Or is it like set by months? Because like my kid would wear shorts in December,
Right.
So like, would you set parameters around that?
So ultimately, if this body approved that, what I would do is I would allow them to temporarily do that, but then I would bring forth a policy change in our uniform policy. I wasn't going to invest that much time into this initially if it was not interest of you. But there would be a policy change, and I would most likely put in place a certain month frame, June through September, or or something like that. I know at one point we had a policy, and I'm talking years ago, where it actually gave officers the option to wear their ballistic vest or to not wear their ballistic vest if the heat index was above 85 degrees for that day. That policy is no longer in place, and officers are required to wear their ballistic vest at all time when they're in uniform on patrol. So, but no, I could see it being something to that effect of being from June 1st through September 30th or something like that, or whatever this body approved.
Mike, you have anything? No. Randy? No.
Give it a try and see how it works out. Awesome.
I would think that I would need a motion, and the motion would be, Gordy, do you want to see if you can word something?
To the effect that we allow shorts in a time frame, June to September on a trial basis, perhaps come back to us in September if we allow it now, that it would start right now, even though it's almost the end of July. Start now and come back to us at the end of September and tell us how it worked. Is everyone happy with it at that point? Are there some that weren't happy with doing it, or some that refused to do it, or whatever? But that's what I'd like to see. That'd be a trial basis.
I'll take that to be a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Randy, second. So we have a motion to allow a trial, on a trial basis, for patrol officers to wear uniform shorts. And report back to us at the end of September.
That's good. Thank you.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Fire department activities, training reports, and correspondence packet sheet.
Just a couple of things to bring to your attention. Page 10B, this year for Safety City, two of our firefighters, Matt Wolf and Tony Fighter, stepped up and did a lot for the event, took charge of it on our end. Safety City is an annual event that we try to run in conjunction with the police department, with Parks and Rec, and trauma, pediatric trauma up at the hospital. Teaching pre-K kids about various safety topics, water safety, bike safety, fire safety, pedestrian safety, sorts of things. So those two gentlemen did a great job this year, and I'm guessing that they will continue on with that next year. On 10C, very similar to what Chief Ramsey talked about, the debrief in ARPAN. Matt Wolf is one of our critical incident stress debriefers. He facilitated a debrief for emergency responders, the first responders, fire department, in Pittsville on June 18th. It sounds like it went really well. And we currently have, I believe, 3 or 4 on the department that are part of this team. Also on 10C, Dave Bueller from GIS gave an update to our pre-fire plan that we're doing on GIS. This is a long-term project. It is something where we can pull up maps of the city and select buildings that have been entered are a 3D view, so we can actually dive down into the buildings and see different things. He gave a presentation to all the shifts, kind of giving us an update on the progress. And I think once it's up and running, it's going to be a pretty nice tool. I know that he has received a lot of requests from other cities in the state to help them build this program out for them as well. On 10D, Relief Lieutenant Derek Jonas met with the school district and Mid-State again on the School to Work program. Things are moving forward as far as kind of figuring out how we'd like to see it. Working hard on it. There's a lot of momentum right now and excitement, not only with the school district and Mid-State, but also with our personnel. A couple of thank you notes and cards. And other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or message you would simply place on file.
Any comments or questions? Thank you, Chief. The next item, item 11, is review and approval of the proposed 2020 law enforcement department budget. Law enforcement department budget. I don't know.
You can answer that.
Okay, that's fine. I'll make a comment. I'm sure all of the commissioners understand that they have changed, the city has changed the way this budget is put together, in that the CIP items are included in the department budget. The rationale for that, I've been told, is that they would like to know what the real amount of each department's cost to the city is. And by separating CIP and operational budgets, the people who have to make decisions never really saw it as a whole. Doing it this way, they know what each department's real costs are to the city on an annual basis. So we have the police department budget in front of us. Are there any, do you want to?
Yeah, I can just give a real brief overview and we'll leave the questions to this part. What you have in front of you is not necessarily going to be what the city receives. And I guess why I say that is I thought it was going to be confusing to say, okay, this is what we're displaying, and then this is what we need, and then we need you to approve both things. So ultimately, it's combined. If this budget gets approved, there'll be some minor changes, and I'll explain some of those as we go along. As you see in my cover letter, I want to thank Lori Krickstrom, Peggy, of course, Pat Zepps, Cindy Getz, Kevin Hamill, and Jason Parks for helping put this together, because I couldn't do it by myself by any means, and it's definitely a multi-person approach that makes it a lot easier, even though it is painstaking. Our budget as a whole went up 5.8% over last year. That does include CIP items in there, which previously it may not have included. The 89% of our budget is personnel costs, salaries, benefits, with 11% of that being operations and maintenance, anything from keeping the lights on in the building to vehicle and squad replacement, ammunition, uniforms, etc. Some of the changes you'll see is a 5% increase in straight time employee wages. That's based on the staffing study that the city has done for non-represented employees, but then also the union contract and what wages go up over the last, what they'll be going up in 2020 or anticipated. There's a 2% increase in overtime. And this is one of those areas that will actually be, I guess, displayed to city administration a little bit differently than how it's displayed to you. So for overtime, there's not supposed to be any increase on our part. The challenge is with salaries increasing, we actually did decrease the number of hours of overtime that we're requesting, but with the salary increases for non-represented and represented staff, we can't help but have an increase in overtime because they're earning more per hour based on salary bumps in 2020. So what you will have on, I guess to be specific, on page 8, where it talks about overtime, it says 2019 approved was $154,811.
we're requesting $158,439, so roughly a $4,000 increase, roughly. But that's with a reduction in hours, but more of a cost towards an hourly rate of pay. What the city will see when we turn this in is they'll see that we're requesting $154,811, and then on a separate sheet of paper, we're gonna have to ask for that extra $4,000 and justify it by saying there's wage increases, and despite decreasing our overtime by roughly 100 hours, there's still an increase in that overtime budget amount based on salary increases. So that's what they'll see. I thought it would just be easier for you to see the whole picture, and then we'll separate it out again once this is approved or if this is approved. Other increases we had was for temporary employees, which falls on page 10. There's an increase of roughly $3,000 or 20%, and why this is our transport officers have been used significantly. We're actually on a rate to almost double the use of our transport officers from the first inception of this program. That can be, the main reason we use transport officers is if our staffing is such to where we don't want to lose a body from the community. We don't want to send a police officer or a patrol officer down to Wisconsin Rapids to take somebody we have in custody to jail, or we don't want to take somebody up to Wausau or whatever. We don't want to lose that body in the city in case something happens. So we'll call in a transport officer as long as that individual isn't combative and is cooperative. And that transport officer will just simply chauffeur that person to either Wood County or Marathon County or sometimes even Clark County Jail for us. Based on staffing numbers and again, the desire to keep staffing within the city appropriate, we've had to use those transport officers more often. So we're actually increasing, we're asking for an increase of 300 hours towards those transport officers. I believe we had 450, either 400 or 450 hours this last year or this current year. We're on pace to probably have close to 800 hours. We're asking for 700 hours, and that's where that roughly a $3,000 increase will come in. Again, what the city will see in this is the exact same amount of $15,525 with the justification of why we need to increase it by $3,000. I guess in advance, we're just looking for your approval of that increase because of the need that we have to maintain a certain level of staffing within the city, despite having to take somebody down to jail. Acting shift commanders. Oh, go ahead.
Are these off-duty officers that are willing to do these transports?
Nope, they are civilian individuals who we hire, similar to our, some of them are our auxiliary officers. They're just doing this for pay, doing the transport. This is a program that Chief Jepson has put into place prior to his arrival, or prior to his departure. What we do is we pay the individuals $12.50 an hour and give them a minimum of 2 hours. And that's the transport, and if it ends up being more, they earn more. But it saved the city money. We were depleting our staff in the city. We were sometimes dropping to 3 officers in the city when our minimum staffing is really 5 if we had to take multiple people to jail, where now we won't go below that minimum staffing level. And rather than having to call an officer in on overtime and pay them $45 an hour, we're able to have these civilians come in and pay them $12.50 an hour. So it was a savings to the city in having this program as well. But yeah, it's a civilian position.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. As my cover letter states, acting shift commander rate of pay, it went up significantly. Normally, what an acting shift commander is when our lieutenant and our lead officer are gone, then somebody else is put in charge of that shift for that day. And on average, we would budget roughly $440 a year for this. Well, the city had told us that they were also adding a cost to whenever we're training somebody, the field training officer rate of pay was coming out of this line item as well, so we were wondering why we're over budget this year for that. So it's just a different classification or a different organization on the finances side. So we're really not asking for more money for those acting shift commanders. All we're doing is lumping the shift commanders and the field training officers in together based on the finance request or recommendation. So that's why you see an increase there from $440 to $2,960. So that can be seen on the cover letter, but that's also shown on page 11 at the bottom, that increase. This year, based on having many new officers hired and trained, we're on pace to spend $6,800, where again, we only budgeted $440, but that was because the way finance organized it and pulled money from different pockets as opposed to how we thought it was being done. Again, one of the things we have no control over is health insurance costs. Those are predicted to go up 11%, and those are impacting the budget, obviously. And there is a slight decrease with employee education. I will be finished with my master's degree. Assistant Chief Zepps will be close to being finished with his master's degree. We have one of our lieutenants that'll be pursuing his master's degree. And we have a number of officers that are either finishing bachelor's degrees or starting bachelor's degrees. So despite all of that, there will be a slight decrease in what was approved in 2019, which was a little over 34,000, to what is being requested in 2020, which is 31,500. Again, what I'm showing you real numbers here. What the city is going to want to see is they're going to want us to budget the 34,200 and show that, and then on this separate sheet, show a decrease and explain why that decrease is occurring. So that's where I was talking to Chief Owens too about this, and it's kind of, I mean, it's new to us, it's kind of confusing. I don't know why I would budget for something that I know I don't need, or not budget for something that has some real cost implications now. But again, I trust that finance says that this is going to be an easier and more simpler way to not only show council the budget and real dollar items versus the increases that are necessary. But I just thought initially this was the best way to go about this. On telephone, which is on page 17, there's an increase. We were approved for $20,500 in 2019. It goes up to roughly $23,800. The reason for this is we, as a city, changed from US Cellular or Verizon to AT&T and FirstNet, which gives protective services priority in the case of a crisis. We would have priority with our phones and with our modems in the squads, to where if everybody in the community was trying to use their cell phones and communicate, we wouldn't get bumped. We would actually maybe be doing the bumping, so that our priority, we have first priority in communicating and helping resolve that crisis. That naturally went up. It went up roughly by $200 per month. So there'll be an increase there of roughly, I think, $2,500. What the city's going to want to see is they're going to want us to budget the $20,500 and then ask for that increase. Right now, we're paying that increase. Our 2019 bills are averaging about $1,400 to $1,500 per month. So that's one of those things where it's like, okay, we know that that amount is necessary because we're currently paying it, but through this new process, we'll just be asking for approval to continue paying that amount. There's a couple other minor increases here. I won't continue going into detail. Automotive capital went up a little bit with the cost of our squads, increasing a little bit in the equipment and the installs, but that was all factored into the CIP program and has already been approved by City Council for CIP with our purchase of our 4 vehicles being 3 frontline squads for 2020 and 1 detective vehicle for 2020. So with that, if you actually take the increase in our automotive capital, which was, you'll see in the second to last paragraph in the budget letter, that increase in automotive capital, which was a little over 16,000, and the increase in the AT&T phone service, which for the year was a little over 2,000. That pretty much makes up our whole budget difference, or our whole 5% increase with operations and maintenance. So any increase we had in the operation and maintenance side, the stuff that we can control a little bit, was pretty much explained with 2 items, being the phones and the increase in the squad prices. So I know that was a little more than a brief overview, but I just wanted to explain how you might see something a little bit different once it goes to council for approval. But in the end, it's going to be identical. It's just going to have a different appearance to it. I would be happy to answer any questions you have, otherwise we'd look for your approval.
Thank you, Chief. It occurs to me, for those who watch these meetings on television, we're using CIP all the time, and not everyone may know what CIP means. In the city's budget, CIP items are capital improvements. It can be anything from a building to new squad cars, new fire engines, street repair and improvement. It's capital expenditures rather than operational expenditures. Just so those watching who might be confused by CIP, that's what it means. Are there questions for the chief?
I do have a question. On the health insurance, so by this new model, you should really know it's gonna go up by 11%. Your estimate is $13,000 more than you're asking for, but that doesn't match your previous year. So that's kind of an upside of a model of what the city is asking for. And so if you think it's going to be 826,000, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna just put $13,000 in this other bucket and say we're gonna, even though?
Yeah, I mean, you can see it on that item. It shows that council approved for 2019, 733,000.
Right.
And we're estimating almost $100,000 more in expenditures this year. This is one of those numbers that they tell us what to put in here. Based on our calculations, that number is off. They say it's not, but again, based on that 813,000 is what we're being told by City Hall or by the Finance Department we should budget for 2020, even though there's an 11% increase, and we're currently on pace to spend 826 this year. That's one of those areas which complicates our budget, because if we know that it's going to be more and we're being told to put in less based on calculations, yeah. So I don't know what else we could do in that
So you won't
situation.
present that as a, ask for 813, but the variance would be another 13. You won't put that in your budget.
No, what we'll do is we'll budget first. Well, that's one of those, whenever you see staffing worksheet and where it says 2020 per staffing worksheet, those are numbers that the finance department calculates and tells us to just enter in there. So we don't have to necessarily justify those, but I think it makes for good conversation why we're justifying the fact that we might be $100,000 over budget at the end of the year in 2019. But at least we could justify it by saying, going off of the 2019 staffing worksheet numbers, which we were told to put in place, they must have been off or shy, because we spent more than that. And that's, I mean, they're trying to calculate, I believe, the individuals that will maybe be in a family plan versus a single plan and the increase, and yeah, I mean, that's confusing to us too. I mean, we've talked significantly about that. There's a couple other numbers that are slightly off that we're told to put in. Life insurance for one, we're told to budget $1,200 less, even though we're on pace to spend that. So again, that's one of those numbers that we get and we're stuck with.
Mike?
There's a number of items in the budget every year though that you are told or directed by City Hall to like energy costs for natural gas, utilities, fuel costs and stuff like that. So that's kind of, I don't know, when we always looked at the budget, you got down to a certain line in the budget, then you start digging because everything else was.
Right. Yeah, there's certain things we don't have control over. They may anticipate there'll be a slight increase in water and sewer, and I believe in electric. One of the reasons is there's an annual customer service fee that historically we've budgeted for the police department. We're now told that we have to pay that customer service fee, which is nominal, but we have to also pay that for our impound garage and also for our range house out at the range. Those are costs that, small increases, but those are things too that we don't have any control over, but it's a natural increase. We might be told that there's a 0% increase in water and sewer, but maybe a 1.5% increase in electric, and we just naturally, kind of like that staffing worksheet numbers, we just automatically increase the cost per kilowatt hour by that 1.5% because that's what we're told is the increase we're told to do. There's very few things besides those utility costs and the gasoline costs. That's pretty much about it on the operations and maintenance side. I would say the majority of the salaries and benefits side, we're told the numbers too. We're told the salaries amount. We figure out probably 3 categories on that whole side, maybe 3 or 4 categories on the salaries and benefits side. The rest are pretty much numbers that we're told to use. So a lot of that is out of our control, and we hope that the numbers are accurate or accurate reflection of what they'll be like in 2020. But again, it can be a guessing game at sometimes because we anticipate the same with like that CIP that Andy had mentioned. We're anticipating what the cost of squad vehicles will be in 2020, but if we reach out to B&H or to Ford and ask them, hey, how much is a Ford Explorer a police package Ford Explorer going to cost us on January 1st of 2020? They'll probably say, we'll let you know in December, when really right now is when our budgets are due. So we try to factor in an estimated increase percentage of what the car might go up. But oftentimes it's not an exact science.
Yes, sir.
On page 18, repair and maintenance services, motor vehicle contract, a 2-year contract. Who do we have a contract with?
We contract with Associated Sales and Leasing in town. They have the diagnostic equipment that is able to be used for the vehicles, where some of the other, I guess we go out for bid, and many of the places either go to the diagnostic equipment or are charging more per hour labor. We've been with Associated Sales, I want to say, for probably about 10 years, and they continually come in low bid with that, along with having the equipment to properly diagnose our squads. We'll still take the squads to B&H if they're under warranty, but just for some of that scheduled maintenance that does come at a cost to us, or those obscure things that aren't covered under the warranty, we go through Associated Sales because of that low bid.
And if that's the amount that's budgeted, then that sometimes you don't necessarily use all of that.
Right. Yeah, what we do is we anticipate, based on previous years, how much we're going to need. And what that often covers is brakes, oil changes, radiator flushes, any other, again, scheduled maintenance, or a check engine light comes in and we learn that it's something that needs repairs, or there's maybe some steering issues with the squad, or the suspension if we need to replace any shocks or struts or things that would come out of that amount.
Thank you.
Additional questions? As long as we're on page 18, would you turn to page 19? There's quite an increase in contractual services. Without the 2019 numbers, I don't know where that's coming from.
The first line item in there is that regional computer forensic lab.
That's new expense.
Yes, we had, that was a budget resolution that I had brought forth a while ago to where Marathon County and Wausau, and I believe Stevens Point was going together. And we're looking for others to take part in this regional computer lab for if we have to forensically diagnose or pull evidence off of computers or cell phones or other computer devices. And we had written a budget resolution to be part of this group with the anticipation that there would be an annual cost to be a part of that. Despite that going up, there's also a slight decrease in publications, subscriptions, and dues, which is in there is one of the software programs that we would normally renew annually for forensic computer investigations that we no longer need because this computer lab will have that, and the frequency of us using that software is not such to where we need to have it in-house. Our detectives felt that accessing it through the computer lab in Wausau would be sufficient.
That's fine. That reminds me though, the categories have labels, or the segments of the budget have labels. Are those given to you, or are those
Given to us.
because subscriptions is that's really not an appropriate term for what's included in the subscriptions when it's software. But that's okay, we don't need to do
Renewals, it could be, or some sort of, yeah.
8 replacement handguns. You wear guns out that fast, or what's going on?
What page are you on?
I'm on page 23. And these are just curiosity questions.
What we do is we have our handguns on a rotational basis. So each officer keeps their handgun for 5 years. And then at 5 years, we replace it out. So every year, it's easier to just, and why it's $150 each, the handguns are actually roughly $410. But with the trade-in value of the old handguns, that makes up roughly
We can talk,
$260 or $250 to $260 of that. But yeah, it's just on a rotational basis.
we
So
can talk about this later. You replaced them all at once, not so long ago, because they were defective. Or you replaced a lot of them.
rifles, we replaced rifles last year and
All right.
the year before. So we have 41 officers with 8 handguns a year. They're on a 5-year rotation. That equals roughly
That's fine.
the handguns that we replace.
Are there any other questions for the chief about his presentation of the budget?
This is not meant to cause a rift at the table, but what does the fire protection charge mean? What is that,
That's from utilities.
it's not for you, it's not, what is that?
That's the old, remember back, well, before you guys were in commission, the fire department paid for hydrant rental, and it was like $500,000 or something a year. That was taken out of city and put onto utility bills. So everybody in the city pays for the fire protection charge. That's what that is.
I was gonna suggest that they just agree to trade.
I didn't know what it was.
Police department
It's a
would
little
just
misleading.
provide it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Police
commercial
protection.
utilities.
It's actually on your monthly water bill.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a,
It's well worth the investment.
It really was just a method to be able to generate some tax revenue off the exempt properties that are paying property tax. Similar to like fuel tax, maybe like that you proposed, right?
That was an ingenious invention.
It was.
And we thank you.
Motion to approve the budget.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion to approve? Thank you. Ms. Doherty. Is there, or are there any additional questions or comments about the police department budget?
It's very thorough and easy to follow. And, good job on it.
We need a roll call vote on the reviewing and accepting the budget. Go ahead.
Myers,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Hirschman,
Yes.
Keel.
Yes. Thank you. So we have approved the police department budget. Now we go to the fire department and their budget. You had the advantage, Scott, of some of the questions that are general to the budget process have been answered, so.
So for this year, we have 3 budgets, protection, prevention, and EMS. Each of them saw an increase. I don't have the percentages within this budget here. However, including all the capital items, protection saw a 14% increase, of which 10% is personnel, 10% is wages and benefits this year.
Control of that.
Yeah, and all of the, like Rick had said, all of the wages and benefits items in that category come from finance. So that was a huge portion of it.
And those increases include contractual anticipations.
Correct, yeah, because we're still in negotiations with the local finance, made some adjustments to the rate or to the pay, which could be changed yet, it could go up yet.
So Scott, we had just a small explanation on the change for the first 2 ambulances in terms of staffing costs. Can you cover that?
Sure.
There's something contractual, and I didn't, there's a lot of material here, so it was brand new place on this. Something about the first 2, it's a negotiated item,
So
expected.
Yep, the first, so the firefighters get what's called daily pays. So if they drive the first engine, they get MPO pay for the day. If they're on the first ambulance, they get first ambulance pay for the day. We currently have 2 members staffed on the first ambulance, and the request through the negotiations is to pay second ambulance crew daily pay as well, because they're just as busy as first. And suitable to the city during our negotiation sessions. We included it in here. Now, if they're already getting the daily pay as an MPO and they're on that second ambulance, they wouldn't get double daily pay, they'd only get 1. So that's what.
So how much is that approximately?
It's $15 a day, so it's like almost $11,000 a year per ambulance.
And the reason behind the union asking for that is what?
Just because the call volume increase.
Okay.
Yeah, because like I say, the first ambulance and second ambulance go out about the same amount of time.
Okay.
And it has nothing to do with the.
No, it looked to me like it's just trying to be equitable.
Be what?
Equitable, instead of having just one ambulance getting.
Oh.
There's some truth.
There's some truth to that,
Okay.
yeah, and it's, because they are as busy as the first. Also within our budget, we did include all of the budget change sheets. There were a lot of items that were submitted by members of the department, and it's really just to increase our knowledge and training and needs of the department. Whether or not they all get funded is still to be seen. My guess is they won't, and everybody here understands that they were under a budget crunch starting this year, but it shows our importance. On prevention, it was an overall 8.3% increase, of which 3% is wages and benefits. Within this particular budget, there was an increase in contractual services of $5,149. That is the wellness testing. So last year we had included in the budget, it was pulled out of the budget and then council put it back into the budget. But they put the prevention and protection together in protection, so prevention didn't have that charge. So we just separated the two back out where they should be, and it puts it back in line. And then in EMS, EMS was a confusing budget this year because the adopted budget is different than the revised budget. So back in January, February, whatever it was, we did that budget resolution for staffing to show the increase, the actual revenue received, which changed the budget. The adopted budget was 1.17 million, something like that. And, excuse me, the revised was 1.48 almost. So it was a big change. Wages and benefits, again, are responsible for the majority of the cost. Capital items, there are a lot of capital items. And again, we know that not everything is going to be funded. CIP is out there, it's been approved by council, and then in addition, Deputy Chief Backus has a few additional items in the 18,500 capital fund that he feels are necessary for EMS in order to facilitate calls better, transfers better. So, the budget change request forms themselves were, it was different this year in the respect that much like Chief Bromstead said, it's what do we put in, how do we update? We put a lot of stuff into our actual budget as far as the increases for utilities, and we tried to incorporate some of the negotiations into here, into the budget itself, but overall, the base budget is fairly similar to last year. Again, wages and benefits that we get from finance, those numbers are the majority of the increases. Before I open up for questions, I do want to just take a second and thank Deputy Chief Fletty and Backus for their work, as well as Lori. A lot of people here at the department took the time to put in budget requests to see what we need, to see, or to show that we do need additional training, we do need additional equipment, and just building this budget has been really a challenge. And a special thank you to everybody on the shifts at the morning meetings. I would say it's budget day, leave me alone, don't bother me. They did pretty good at not coming in the office and talking. So, but with that, I think the easiest thing is to open it up to you for questions, and we'll do our best to answer them.
So Scott, just kind of a couple of general observations. I know a lot of the what you put in for CIP or additional purchases for equipment. I mean, I know a lot of that's probably not going to be approved. So, I mean, in the back of your mind, do you have like 3 or 4 items that would be pulled out from it? It had to be.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got, we've already talked on a lot of the different things, do we need this? No, we don't need that. But we put it in because it was requested, but we've already got that in our mind of what we can do without this year and try again next year.
And then just a follow up to that, the 2 things that stand out to me obviously is the floor repair. So if you can give a little background to that, and then also the remodeling cost. And the only thing I think from a public standpoint of the remodeling cost, when we built the station for 40 years, then now we have to do a remodeling for just a few additional staff. I'd like to see you address that.
Sure. So let's start with the floor. The floor, for many, many years, has been in need of repair. So when the vehicles come back in, salt drips, it starts to pit the floor. The seal coat is gone. We brought it up prior to my time in the office. We brought it up several times, and we just kept an eye on it. We'll just keep an eye It's not as simple as just, breaking out the concrete in those bad floors and replacing it because of in-floor heat. So we can't do that. Pete and a couple of the firefighters have worked on this project. And for the life of the station, the life of that concrete, something needs to be done. It needs to be sealed. This particular request would put some form of sealant on that floor, clean it up, get the sealant on there, protect it from deteriorating any further. I don't know if you want to add.
It's going to be unfortunately, we're past the point of where we can grind it down and put the, smooth it out and then put a very thin seal on it. It's pitted so bad in some areas that it just needs to be epoxy. So it's going to be a multi-layer epoxy going on this, which will give it about a 15-year life without doing anything to it. It's under warranty. It lived for 10, but they said their floors have been lasting 15 years. And at that 15-year point, they would come back in, take off that top layer of epoxy, and then just reapply that at a much lower cost. So it's more of a, we need to keep up with maintenance and put that in our budget to maintain these things rather than just push it off.
So essentially what they're gonna do is regrind the floor, level it, and then re-epoxy, something like that.
Yeah, they're putting down epoxy for the first time. So all we did before it was ground down and smoothed out to make it look nice, and then there was a thin coat of some sort of material that was put on top.
And as we've been in the station, it'll be 10 years next year, so 9 years. We're starting to find different items that haven't been maintained. So we look at our boilers, we look at the HVAC system, we look at the floors, we look at a lot of different things where there haven't been preventative maintenance plans in place prior to, and we're starting to address those. We're getting plans in place, or we have plans in place to make sure that all of these systems continually run for a minimal amount of money. As far as the remodel, we did build this station for many, many years. Upstairs, every bunk room is full. We have one additional room in the corner. It's a quiet room, it's a study room, it's an extra TV room. But one of the things that we discussed as senior staff here is the need to have the lieutenants, who are second in command of the shift, on the same floor as the shift commander. So there are many times when the shift commander is not available in his office for whatever reason, the shift or the lieutenant would be on the first floor, able to answer the phones, answer the door, whatever, while that shift commander is gone. Also, middle of the night, they would be able to help with call-ins or whatever else is needed. The request is to remodel the EMS report writing room into a lieutenant's office. In that lieutenant's office, there would also have the all of the call-in books. They'd have that would be their inspection stuff as well, because they're the primary inspectors. And to us, it seems worthwhile to put them down on the first floor, being in charge, second in charge of the shift. So I guess that's kind of the background on it.
That sounds reasonable.
I was disappointed with
Oh, I'm going to the back, you're in charge.
Yeah, exactly. So any other questions? Chief?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Good question. Before we vote.
Sure.
So what is the overall increase in your budget? Percentage-wise?
Each budget is different, so fire protection, including CIP, is 14. Without CIP, It's 9, and again, majority of those are health, or wages. Prevention is 8, without CIP, it's just about 3. EMS, again, it's kind of dependent on which budget you look at. So if it's over the adopted budget, which was the initial, it's a 24% increase. If it's over the revised budget, which is the one that we've been working off of, it's a 1.1% decrease over 2019. And again, the CIP, we know that a lot of stuff, or not even the CIP, but the budget requests, we know a lot is not going to get funded. A lot doesn't get funded every year. But I think it's important that we include that to show the need is there.
So, any other questions?
Myers,
Yes.
Neese,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Gershman.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
What's, so now, we're going to close session.
Yeah.
So, do I have to read that whole
Yeah.
thing? You do?
No, go ahead. I did it when I.
Do I just read this right here?
Yeah. Just
All right,
paragraph.
Consideration of motion to adjourn into closed session pursuant to section 19.851E Wisconsin statutes. Deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Specifically to discuss ambulance contract with area township.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
For a second?
Okay.
Okay. You're in closed session.
Thank you.